so I'm gonna, since we're a couple minutes over, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time introducing Carey Bunks because he can do that himself. He was with European Directories and is now the founder and CEO of a mobile company called SenseCraft. He's going to be talking about the mobile landscape and related subjects. So please welcome Carey.
Thank you very much, Greg. That's great. And I just wanted to say very quickly that I totally agree with Paul that there is huge opportunity for Yellow Pages in servicing small businesses. My wife is a small business owner. We spend £36,000 sterling a year on Google AdWords, and we spend another £3,000 or £4,000 a year on a variety of other websites on the internet that help do the marketing. And so I just, when you think that the average value per order for Yellow Pages in the UK was something like Paul, is this right, 700 or 800 pounds? Paul? Okay. Paul, 700, 800 pounds was the ADO for Yellow when we were there? Yeah. So. Okay, so just in terms of getting the first slide here. All right, so the title of this talk is mobile the only relevant device? Usage gone wild, and I have to say thank you very much because Neil helped choose that title. Okay, and he actually inspired me. And it's kind of sad to say that Neil is my muse, but he did inspire this talk. Okay, I just want to say a few words about SenseCraft before I launch into the main ideas of the talk. So SenseCraft is a spin-off, it's a technology spin-off from European Directories, where we basically developed about 165 apps and services for European directories, in which we deployed out to 8 countries in Europe, and is now delivering about 8.5 million sessions per month, and represents about 40% of all the usage, online usage for European directories. So we're experts in mobile apps, web services, and we're really specialized not in just making apps. We're specialized in driving traffic. And another point, which is very important, but not, I think, spoken about often enough, we're also specialized in conversions, optimizing conversion, because it's one thing to get consumers into your website and looking at your content, and it's a total another thing to get them to convert and to go on and contact the small businesses that we represent in Yellow Pages. So we've got a core product that's been rolled out to a lot of Yellow Pages. Here are some of them, and we are also now servicing some verticals. We're working with companies like ServiceMagic. But this is just a pastiche of various companies that we're working with at the moment. And this is just kind of a quick, superficial glance of the portfolio that we have. So it's not just a Yellow Pages browse service or a Yellow Pages app that adapt well to each one of the devices, but we've also rolled out some 24 or so verticals that run on smartphones and tablets, and also work in a mobile browse service. And we've won a number of awards. I'm not going to bore you with all of this. But so let's just get on to then the preamble, the main thesis of what I'd like to talk to you about today. So we all know that in the last 10 years, it's been just this fantastic shift from offline to online. And we're now seeing that same shift that we saw about 10 years ago happening going from the stationary internet to the mobile internet. And I don't think there's anybody who would be surprised here if I were to say that smartphones and tablets are just overtaking, I think it's fantastic, taking the metro here in Shanghai and seeing everybody in the train bent over their mobile phone. And such a broad variety of devices, and that's fantastic, but it also represents an incredible challenge to support all these devices and all the browsers and all the development environments, and to be able to evolve over time with the various features and functionalities that need to be rolled out to all of these devices all at once, and often in many countries or across many brands. The other thing is that we know that now that mobile and tablet usage is overtaking desktop usage in many sectors and in many countries. And the other thing that's very interesting about mobile, it is particularly well adapted to the interactive and social internet, because you've got your camera right under your fingers, and you've got other things you can use whatnot, right on your mobile device. So it really drives consumer engagement like nothing else. And so the main thesis of this talk is that mobile is really irresistibly reshaping the internet. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a few seconds. But it's fast becoming the key strategic component that's really needed for commercial success on the internet. So let's see what that means. So here's an overview of the talk. I'm going to present a little bit of data, which is my evidence of change. And then I'm going to talk about how mobile actually functions in a way that is reshaping the way consumers are interacting with the internet. It's really a strategic cornerstone. I'll talk more about what that means, at least to me. There are some key components to a mobile platform. If you want to be successful, you need to take into account that it is more complex and it is technologically challenging. So you need to put some specific components in place if you're going to succeed, not just in this quarter, this year, but for the long run. I'll talk to you a little bit about our mobile platform, and then I'll also provide some data and examples of the way we've been able to drive usage for some of our customers. Okay, so a tsunami of mobile devices, evidence of change. So many of you may have already seen some of these photos, but we just know the way consumers are interacting today is that they are taking their mobile devices with them everywhere, and they are using them to record the world around them, and to interact with others, and to share. This is really key, okay? So here's just a photo of what people did in concerts in the 90s and what they're doing in the 2010s. And here, this is a really fascinating picture. Two pictures, one from 2005 and one from 2013. So on your right, no, on your left is the passing of Pope John Paul II. This is Vatican Square. And you see nobody's got a mobile phone or a tablet. In March of 2013, wow, that's the nomination of Pope Francis. Look at how many mobile devices are lit up in that picture. Okay, well, I mean, this is a somewhat controversial comparison because maybe you don't take photos of somebody who's just passed away. But on the other hand, the iPhone wasn't even available in 2001. Okay, so we know intuitively that mobile is really playing a much bigger role in our lives. So I have a few graphs here that I borrowed from Mary Meeker's presentation for 2013 on the state of the internet. Many of you will probably be familiar with her, but I think that these are particularly interesting because this particular slide is about the percentage of global mobile internet traffic as a function of all internet traffic. And what it shows is that currently at about 15% of all traffic, and Mary Meeker's prediction for mobile is it will grow to 30% of all digital traffic in the next couple of years. Another very interesting slide is just this one about how consumers access the web in China. Okay, so this slide indicates that there are more people accessing the internet through their mobile devices in China than on the desktop devices. And I mean, having been here now for a few days, I can really believe that. It just seems amazing how many mobile devices are being used right around us here in Shanghai every day. Another interesting slide is about more specific to how consumers search in Korea. And so this is a study that was done by NHN Korea. And what we can see here is that mobile queries, that's to say mobile searches, have surpassed that of the desktop internet. Just one more slide here, just about smartphone stats. And I don't know how well this lines up with yours, Neil, but in any case, it's probably pretty similar. And what we can see is that the main point that I think that is important here is that there's currently about 30% penetration. If you look at the numbers across all of these Southeast Asian countries, and there is on average a 27.6 year-on-year growth. Okay, so it's just going like gangbusters, and I think that's very important. Okay, so will mobile be the only device? And my answer to that question is probably not, but it will be a key cornerstone device. And the reasons for that, I'm going to talk about them in a little bit more detail in the ensuing slides. But I think in Southeast Asia, it seems quite likely that mobile will dominate most internet activities over the next few years. And I think there are a lot of quantitative and also qualitative metrics that we can invoke to show that that's already taking place right now. Okay, so we can always argue about the numbers and we can refer to various different surveys, but I think we can feel, intuitively that this is a tsunami of activity, and it's really going to have a profound effect on internet-driven business activities, and specifically for those of us in the Yellow Pages space, and how we're going to help serve small businesses to move forward. Okay, so business directories, I think, really need to assess what their approach is to mobile and whether it is well adapted to having a sustainable business model in the mobile space. Okay, so cause and effect. How is mobile reshaping the internet? Okay, well, it's really a lens through which most people are interacting with now on a day-to-day basis. So that's to say that people read their email, they do search, they take photos, and they look at photos, they take video, they look at video, they're social, they're using location, they're interacting with advertising, and they are buying things through their mobile device. Well, when you realize this, you realize that you need to do something about how you approach marketing. Because what good is it for you to have SEO on your desktop site, and when the consumer actually does a search and finds a desktop link, and they click on that, they go through and they get a poor desktop experience on their desktop. Are they going to convert? Probably not. Okay, so you have to worry about your SEO. If you have a Google AdWords campaign, you have to worry about what the landing page is when the consumer clicks on that. Obviously, social media advertising is increasing. Direct email marketing, I don't know how many of you are engaged in that, but if you're sending out direct emails as a marketing tool and consumers read their email on their mobile device and then they click on a link and they go through to a poorly designed landing page for mobile, that's not going to be very effective. That's going to be a waste of money. And of course, many Yellow Pages also have affiliate programs or they have partnership programs, and those partners will have links on their sites. And what the link experience is for consumers after that is also a very important question. And then, of course, local search apps. Okay, so all of these work together kind of in a ecology, okay, that needs to support what the consumer experience is going to be when they click on that link and they engage with targeted content. Will they engage? Will they convert? That's the question, I think, that is so important in thinking about how products and technology for Yellow Pages needs to move forward. Okay, so one ring to rule them all, that's a reference to a very famous novel I'm sure that you're probably all familiar with. Mobile is the cornerstone, okay? And it's the cornerstone in that consumers now are interacting with many devices, okay? So even though mobile is very important, they still interact with their laptops and their desktops. And they've got their smartphones, and sometimes they're using their tablets. And the exact segmentation of usage of all these is a very fluid set of numbers, and it's in different populations. But the important thing is to have a seamless experience. And I'm really happy that Paul talked about Amazon, because they're really a paradigm for me about how to provide a seamless user experience. How many of you have interacted with Amazon through email, because they're often sending emails about products that you may be interested in, and you can read that either on your desktop or you can read it on your mobile. Okay? And the user experience is seamless, and just as good on a mobile device as it is on a desktop device. And moreover, if you have the Amazon app, you can be automatically transferred from the Amazon mobile web service to the app. Same thing for Facebook. Okay, so having a fully integrated approach to mobile is very important. Let's face it, there is a quantum entanglement between desktop and mobile. Okay, so whether people find links for your services on their desktop or find it on the mobile device. It should be a seamless experience. They shouldn't have to say, I want to see the mobile service. They shouldn't have to see, I want to see the desktop service. Okay, so here, what we can see in the upper left-hand corner is whether the consumer is going to your desktop service through a direct request, through SEO, through SEM, through social, email marketing, through a partner. There should be some evaluation of which device is actually making a query, and then there should be a redirection service, which either points you to the correct mobile service or directs you to the online service. The other thing is that you need to be thinking about the synergies between your mobile browser service and your apps. Okay, so we all know that if you can encourage consumers to adopt your apps and to use your apps, then you're going to get a lot more loyalty out of them than if they just interact with your mobile browse service. And so here's just another example of LinkedIn. So LinkedIn sends out a lot of emails. People read that on the mobile device. And if you have the LinkedIn app installed on your device, you can make use of custom URLs on iOS devices, for example, and just the click on the email takes you to the mobile browse service, which then automatically opens up the app, which makes for a very, very seamless experience. Another point that I think is really important is just that there are so many different devices. And you really need to think about how are consumers going to consume your content on different screen sizes. And another thing that's really important is what is the navigational or the interactive paradigm that you have on each device. An iPhone acts very differently from an Android device. And there are many devices out there that are not even smartphones. And so if your service has been designed in such a way so the navigational paradigm doesn't take into account that iPhone users use the device in a certain way and Android users use the device in a different way, then you're just setting them up for confusion. How do I interact with the device? It's not intuitive, and you're going to get bounces, and you're going to lose some fraction of those consumers to frustration. Okay, and so conversion optimization and also diminishing bounce rates as much as possible is a very important part of the game. So this slide just shows that the way our service looks on a BlackBerry may be very different than the way it looks like on an iPhone, which is different than a tablet in landscape or in portrait mode. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about architecture, because in the past, we've thought a lot about mobile browse services as having to support a certain number of browsers. You have to support Firefox, you have to support Internet Explorer, you have to support Safari, okay? And there may be many versions of those browsers, and so there may be some 10 or 12 different browsers that you're supporting. Well, mobile devices, you're supporting both apps and mobile browse services. The mobile browse services, there's about a dozen different types of browsers and versions. And moreover, you're supporting a bunch of different operating systems. So you've got Android devices and iOS devices and Windows devices. So there's an explosion of devices that you need to think about supporting. And you need to think about how do you do that in a cost-effective way so it doesn't eat your lunch. Okay, and so there's a few different design considerations that I think are important. One is performance. Okay, so consumers are not very patient. On mobile networks, you may not get the same type of bandwidth that you get for desktop. And so you need to keep in mind that the amount of content that can be downloaded needs to be optimized for a mobile device. Okay, so that's another point that comes out when you're thinking about how you adapt your services to different devices. Browser compatibility is very important. So we've heard a lot about responsive design. We do not recommend that Yellow Pages use responsive design for your Yellow Pages services. Very good if you're selling websites and you want your SMBs to have a website that works both for desktop and also for the mobile device. But for your industrial grade Yellow Pages service, responsive design is not a good choice. I'm going to show you a reason why for that in a second. Also, the mobile device has a lot of specific capabilities, and often these specific capabilities are the ones that generate value. Okay, so click to call, you don't have that on a desktop. That's just the most obvious. But then there's the camera, and there's the contacts, and there's all the social elements, and there's location, there's notifications, okay, through apps. So all these things that you can exploit, and it's another reason why you want to design specifically for mobile. Conversions, okay, so the way your content lays out on the page will affect whether that person goes on and engages with your advertiser. Mobile-specific usability, okay, so the layout, the navigational paradigm, which I've already mentioned, is very important. The fact that it's a touch screen most of the time, instead of a keyboard and a mouse. And then the messaging aspect of it, so the way you actually construct the story on the page so the consumer will then go on to convert is very different on a mobile device. Let me just say a word about performance then. Okay, so this is one of my favorite examples. Currys is a very big electronics retailer in the UK, and they have a website that's intended for desktop. Okay, and that website, when you go to it, makes a total of 103 requests and downloads almost 900,000 bytes of information. And so that is really not well adapted for a mobile device. And since the Curry site is using responsive design, basically it's 103 requests for the mobile site as well, and also 900 kilobytes for the mobile site. And so the difference here is that instead of 7 seconds to download, as it is on a Wi-Fi service for a desktop, it's actually 17 seconds, also on a Wi-Fi service. I'm not talking about 3G here, okay? It takes much longer to download on a mobile device, mainly because mobile browsers don't support as many simultaneous threads as a desktop browser does. Okay, and now just imagine how it would be if you're out on a 3G network or otherwise out on an edge network or just a GSM network. It's just not a good user experience. Okay, just I already mentioned the complexities of browser compatibility. So on the upper half of the slide here, I can see that there are some 78 different browsers that you may be thinking about supporting. So you've got Internet Explorer, 10 versions of that, Chrome, 27 versions, Firefox, 22. Okay, you may decide not to support all of those versions, but that's a lot of work for your technology team. And on mobile browsers, there's some 20 versions out there that you could think about supporting. And you know, for the consumer space, you really need to be thinking about how do you reach out to all consumers. So what's the effort, what's the cost? You're going to need to develop, quality assure, maintain, and then go on to support your mobile site and the roadmap that you're probably hoping to develop over time. Another point here is this is a comparison of a desktop site for one of our customers and their mobile site. And you can see that it looks very, very different. So on the left-hand side, the desktop site, which has different criteria, different objectives. It's not trying to get consumers to do the same thing as on a mobile site. On the mobile site, we can see the thing that stands out the most is the telephone number. It's a big green button for every business that's being displayed. That's because the main revenue potential, as this customer sees it, is selling click-to-call. And they want to sell click packages. In fact, we're currently driving about 1 million calls a month throughout our entire portfolio of services. And we've come up with a variety of products which seem to have very high potential. And those calls are just growing month on month, and usage is growing month on month. So you can see that it makes sense here that you think about the layout, and you think about what your call to action is per device. Oh, sorry. Let's see. So here I'm just saying that it's an adaptive layout. So we've got a map at the top of the page as well as opposed to on the right-hand side of the page. We've got the device-specific call to action and the click-to-call. Okay, so let me just tell you a little bit about the SensorCraft mobile platform. Hopefully I've convinced you that it's a more difficult technology activity to really manage a great mobile activity for Yellow Pages. As I've mentioned already, it's very important to be as maintainable as possible. You're not just building an app and then plunking it down into the marketplace and leaving it, or a mobile browse service. These things need to evolve over time. The mobile space is moving very, very quickly. New services need to be developed all the time. You need to use your analytics to try and figure out what are consumers doing and how are advertisers interacting with your services, and then you need to improve things. Okay? And to be able to do that for many, many different types of devices, with many different presentational layouts, requires a certain number of very basic services. So I already mentioned redirection. You need to be able to detect on your device and decide what's the best service that you can provide. You need to be thinking about SEO. I'm going to show you a slide in a few seconds which shows why SEO is so interesting for mobile. You need to be able to test hypotheses about what works and what doesn't work. How do you get those conversions? How do you keep consumers from bouncing? So you need to be able to do A/B testing, and having built-in infrastructure to be able to do that is very important. You need to be able to tell what's going on with your data, so logging and analytics is very important. And of course, you need to get your content from many different places, so aggregation, social integration, and we also feel that it's very important to be able to support the collection of content directly from consumers, so UGC, which is user-generated content. Let me just say a question about, a few words about mobile. Okay, so one thing about mobile SEO, which I think is very important, is that, of course, it's the content that you put on the page. But there are many things that you can build into the architecture of your site which are going to support SEO and which are going to drive value for your site. And that's how things interlink between pages. So here, just all the basic hygiene factors for SEO are covered off in our services. That includes search engine-friendly URLs, targeted internal linking infrastructures, keyword-optimized content in titles, description, and meta tags, and of course redirection for mobile devices, because you don't want to lose the SEO for your desktop site just because somebody is working on the mobile device. Here's just some data from two of our customers. You can see that obviously the policies that Google is implementing for mobile devices made a major change in about November of 2011, because we did a lot of work on trying to drive SEO on our mobile devices. But you can see that both in the Netherlands and in Poland, we had okay SEO, well, on the order of 100,000 sessions a month for our Dutch customer and about 25,000 sessions a month for our Polish customer. But as of November 2011, you can see that we just had an explosion of SEO usage on mobile. And in the Netherlands, we went from 100,000 sessions a month to it's now well over 1 million sessions a month just for mobile-specific SEO. In Poland, very similar set of circumstances. We went from 25,000 sessions a month to over 400,000 sessions a month. Wow. You just can't ignore that type of usage. It's very, very valuable stuff. Okay, I mentioned the user-generated content and social features. So user-generated content, we feel, is like one of those key things that really drives SEO. It's fresh content, and it shows search engines that consumers are engaging with your site. That just helps you overall. And so we did everything we possibly could to streamline the user-generated content collection process. We just want to get out of the way of consumers sharing with us photos, comments, ratings, reviews, things like that. And so we don't require consumers to log in or to validate who they are, to leave a comment, or to leave a photo on our site. And we post-moderate everything. We can do that very inexpensively. 5 US cents, we use an outsourced service, 5 US cents per moderated photo. We can collect 100,000 photos for basically nothing. Okay? And when you put in all of these blockers to the consumer to register, to confirm who they are before you're going to give them the right to post their content on your site, it just doesn't make any sense. So we're basically just trying to make it 1 or 2 clicks, not anything more. If they want to lay claim to the review and manage their reviews, then they can register, they can log on, but we don't require anybody to do that. A/B testing infrastructure is just another very important thing. Here, I've already spoken to you about the importance of trying to encourage consumers to use apps. This is our Dutch customer, which was testing 2 banners to encourage customers to download an iPhone app if they end up using the mobile browse service. And so there's an A test and a B test. Here you can see on the left, the A test has a white background and a blue arrow, and it says download our free iPhone app in Dutch. And the B one is black, and it shows the App Store. And we can see that the very, very different behavior. This was done in September of 2012. We ran both of the examples for some 800,000 sessions. Okay, that took about a month. And the number of downloads we got from case A was 14,600, and the number of downloads of the iPhone app for the B case was about 6,000. And so you can see that the A case is more than double. And so which one are you going to go with? And that may not even be the most optimal one. But in any case, the A/B testing infrastructure gives you this capability to go out and make hypotheses and test them and see what's going on. We also have a lot of built-in reporting tools. Some of it's automated, and some of it's interactive. So we've got a web UI, but we also generate many, many automated reports that go out as comma-separated value files. Okay, and just overall the mobile performance of our services. Okay, here's just an example of mobile traffic and conversions for a customer in Austria. This particular slide just shows traffic specifically in the period from November of, or it's the fourth quarter of 2010 to the fourth quarter of 2011. The reason I'm showing that particular time period is I also have data for what the growth in 3G subscriptions and how that grew in Austria at that time. And so just what this slide illustrates is that in that time period, our traffic grew by 67%, when 3G subs only grew by 24% in Austria. And conversions, which in this particular case is the click-to-call, grew by 156%, when 3G subscriptions only grew by 24%. So what we really care about are those calls. That's the moneymaker for this particular service, for this particular customer. Okay, here's another one, just mobile sessions in Poland. Okay, and it shows 3 different time periods. So we've got 72,000 visits for Poland per month in 2010 on average. It rises to 205,000 visits per month by the end of 2011. Okay, so it's a growth of 184%. And to 470,000 visits per month, another 130% growth. These are happening at a time when 3G subs are growing by 17% and 25%. So really fantastic growth, growing much faster than the mobile market is in Poland. Okay, so just conclusions. Okay. So I think mobile, as I've already mentioned, is completely refocusing how consumers interact with content and services on the internet. And so product roadmap strategies that you're engaging with in your Yellow Page companies really need to take into account that internet access is going to be dominated by mobile devices. Okay, so usage is going to surpass desktop usage, and the way consumers interact and value propositions really need to be adapted to mobile. Mobile is providing a very wide range of new value-creating features, and I think on top of that, you just really need to think deeply about how you're going to support the continuity between your desktop, your tablet, your apps, and your browse services. And one last slide. The SenseCraft platform is the result of about 4 million euros of investment made by European directories for 8 countries, built over 3.5 years, and went through 3 or 4 major refactorings. The platform was designed really to achieve great speed and to make the cost of supporting and maintaining the roadmap as cost effective as possible. The data in the presentation, I think, shows that platform, along with its mobile browse services and apps, really has had superlative market performance, and we think we can help many of you here in the Asian market to do the same thing. And we've got very flexible commercial models, really to fit the specific needs, I think, of anybody. And that's the end of my presentation. You have to take any questions.
What's up with responsive sites? Sort of give us a 3-minute overview of all the talk about responsive sites. You sort of discounted in your presentation.
I do, yeah.
So why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, it's very controversial, and
Let me ask you a question before you get into it. Are people using responsive web design for their small business customer websites or for their own sites? How many people are? Okay. This is a big and very highly technical discussion. If you can answer at the high level and then defer any real super technical discussion to lunch or later in the afternoon, that would be great.
yeah, sure. Well, I think, you know, it makes sense for the web presence type of product. You're going to sell a website to a business, you know, that's only going to have a page or 2 or 3 or 4, something along those lines, and you want to automatically to work on a mobile device or on a tablet. It makes absolute sense. But for a industrialized, high production website, which needs to really think about conversions and needs to evolve a lot and needs to support a lot of devices at the same time and a lot of browsers, it really doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. The very first thing is performance. So the Curry's example is a great one. It just takes over 17 seconds for that homepage to download. That's just unacceptable. And that's because the responsive design is just additional CSS and additional JavaScript built on top of the website, of the desktop site. So it's just heavier, not lighter.
Is that 17 seconds the device's fault or the connection's fault?
It's a little both. Yeah.
Because the devices are getting faster.
Well, it's a little of both, actually. Now, the other thing, okay, so now let's just talk about the marketing aspect of it. Okay, so in a responsive design, can I say exactly where the content is going to go? Am I going to have the same value proposition on my mobile device as I have on my desktop service? Am I going to have the same call to action on my mobile device as on my desktop service? The answer is probably not, okay? And so if click to call is really important to me, then how do I know that my responsive design is actually going to put the phone number in the right place, okay? And with this, you know, it's actually not responsive in the end. It's going to be an adaptive design. And I'm going to put as much work in retooling my responsive design as in just building it from the get-go in the right way. And when you're trying to support the 70 or 80 desktop browsers and an additional 20 mobile browsers, you're just better off, you know, you make any change for your desktop site, you have to then go and check all 20 mobile browsers and see if it's still working. If you make any change in your mobile, you have to go back to your 78 on the desktop. Is that still working? That just doesn't make sense. Split it into 2 pieces. Then you make changes on mobile, you don't have to worry about what effect it had on the desktop and vice versa.
So let me stop you on that, because I've been involved in many conversations, and there's a lot of disagreement about the efficacy of responsive versus mobile-specific design. But you cited the 2 chief arguments against responsive design: slow to load, you can't adapt the experience specifically to the mobile use case, which is what you want to do. So those are the 2 high-level. There's many arguments. Let's see if there's another question.
Because I think the third argument is even probably the most important. How much does it cost me to actually maintain my mobile service over time? Because I don't just build it once, Greg. I build it, and then I rebuild it, and I'm doing change requests all the time, adding new features, and so the cost actually balloons out and becomes exponential over time, because it becomes more and more difficult to maintain and support.
Right, so.
And I think a lot of Yellow Pages companies will actually echo that sentiment that just their desktop site becomes impossible to manage over time.
So I'm sure you'll have more conversation about this at lunch.
I have a whole 40-minute presentation
So
on
are
it.
there other questions that people, okay.
What do you think about selling app to our customers? They are not branded on one end. On the other end, there are some companies who offer them their own applications.
I think it's a great idea, but the whole problem is how do you do the fulfillment? And can you do the fulfillment in a cost-effective way? Okay, but I think the other thing is that it's probably unlikely that your customers are going to find that their customers will be using those apps a lot. In many ways, apps are like bookmarks, the old bookmarks of our internet browsers. Okay, and quickly what happens is your phone fills up with apps, and you even kind of forget all the apps that you have. And even if you remember an app, you may have a hard time finding it. Where is it amongst the sea or the forest of all the apps you have on your phone? So you just kind of you short circuit to the easiest thing, which is you open your browser and you search for it on Google. And now you're in a mobile browser experience, not in a mobile app experience. But I think for some segments of the market, it could really make perfect sense. Okay, because Yellow Pages really work with all types of small businesses. And there are certainly some segments where selling an app would be a great branding experience for that customer. And it makes sense whether their consumers will use it or not.
Okay, time for one final question before lunch. Who wants to ask it? There's a ton of technical information in this presentation. Lots of, very dense. No? No one wants to interrupt? Okay.
So where do publishers make money in this ecosystem that you described?
The mobile ecosystem.
Is it in their calls?
Well,
Selling calls?
there's clearly a bundling component to all of this, okay? And because the usage on mobile is now at about 50% of all usage, you can't ignore it as as a prominent advertising body. The other thing is that you can monetize many things on mobile, which are unique to mobile. Click to call is just one of them. Well, I think that that's a whole other presentation, but I did. It's okay. So let's come back to this. I don't think I have time to answer it here in this particular forum. But, we have a lot of ideas about not only what the product is, but how to go out and prospect in an automated way. And so one of the things that we can do is we can figure out exactly where are the calls, what sectors are they being made, and in what geographies. That's a fantastic thing. Not only do you know where the target geography of the search was, but you know often where the consumer was when they made the call. And we can use that information to go out and find out who would benefit from those calls, and then tell them about that, which is just such a different model from traditional Yellow Pages, which is just go out and force an advertising on you, where you don't have any clue whether that's going to be useful to them or not. Here we can definitely say, you know what, Mr. Dentist, the dog grooming business, here's how many calls are happening within 10 miles of where you are per week. And we know that if we put you first in the list, that you will get 70% of those calls. That's fantastic. And 1 million calls, you can sell those. So that's real performance-based, ROI-based stuff. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
So lunch will be